Alrighty, so let's have a bit of a chat about this compression image that we're going to create. The great thing about using compression in a site like this is that we've got an epic location. So we're up here on this incredible cliff edge. The moon is in just the right spot, but way off in the distance out here we can see Wilpena Pound, which is an absolutely magnificent geological formation here in the Flinders Ranges. So the lens that is on the camera that's recording in video now is at 24, the equivalent of 24 millimeters, so it's really wide. So if we were creating a light painting here on this ledge, which we'll do later, you'll see that we get an image like this one, which is beautiful because we get to see the massive landscape, but really the feature like Wilpena Pound in the distance is absolutely minuscule. This is the gear we're going to be using in this image. But what we've got is we've got the EM1 Mark III and we've got the Olympus 40 to 150. Now that is a full frame equivalent, 80 to 300 mil. So what I'm going to do for this shot is I'm going to put the camera quite a way over in the distance over there, and I'm going to create our ball of light right behind me here, and then in the distance we're going to see Wilpena Pound. The way that we manage a shot like this is I take my camera over to where we're going to set it up. I set up the framing so that I have the ledge here off to the left, and then on the right hand side I'm going to have Wilpena Pound. We zoom in nice and tight so that it's nice and compressed as opposed to what you're seeing on the screen now, and we're going to get a beautiful image. Now this obviously brings into account some quite technical things. A couple of those things are that we need to make sure that our remote, so I'm using a remote that is I know it has a good distance on it. On the top of the camera there's a green light that flashes to tell me when it's open and closed. We need to make sure that when we open the shutter, we do our orb and then it closes. If we're going to go back and check the back of the camera, we need to make sure we're very careful. Now, as always with these tutorials, I'm going to be recording the back of the screen so that you can see exactly what's going on at all times. You'll also be able to see just that incredible view that we get under moonlight. Let's get into it. The next time I see you, it'll be dark. And remember, safety is the most important thing when we're up on a ledge like this. I am really familiar now with the location. So here's the ledge we're working on, and this is the edge. This is the area that I've got to play with, and I've checked that there's nothing. It's a bit of kangaroo poo or goat poo here, so I'm making sure the area is nice and clean. So let's not muck around. There is no pissing around with angles. If I slip or I fall from this ledge down here, I'm going to die. There is absolutely no way around that. Beautiful bright moon, lovely clear sky. This is going to be absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to show you what the full moon can do in an image. Let's get into it. I'm so excited. Woo! Okay, so we're working on our compression shot here, and the great thing is that we're losing light very quickly, which means it's pretty easy for me to start illustrating exactly what we're going to get. So we can see on the back of the screen here, I've kind of framed up our shot, and what we've got is I've got the ledge we were standing on before, and I've brought the camera a long way back. So we're probably, like realistically, maybe even 30 meters away from the ledge where we're going to be spinning our orb. But as you can see on the screen, we've got the ledge set up there. I've got some focus. I'll just check my focus. I'm at f2.8, so I'm very, very shallow depth of field. One of the issues that we have, and I'm noticing it a bit with this image, with the camera, it'll be interesting to see how it affects our images, that there is a little bit of wind up here tonight, and it'll be fascinating to see whether we get, how much movement we get. I've got a little bit of sort of tree in the foreground here, which I know is going to give us a little bit of grief, but fundamentally everything is in the shot. We can see the Wilpena Pound in the background. Yeah, everything's feeling really good. Of course, one of the things that I'm always looking at when I'm looking at a frame like this is how am I going to crop the image as well. I tend to crop my images into 16:9. So yeah, we'll crop it a little bit later. Beautiful. It looks like it's going to be really nice, actually. I'm super happy. Now we just need to wait for the sun to piss off and us to get a little bit of light. So let's chat about that. Actually, this is a good time for us to talk about this. Is when is the earliest that we can start creating our light painting images? And I'm going to talk about this without thinking about live composite. Now the live composite feature on the Olympus camera, we can start shooting pretty early in really bright situations. But as with all of these tutorials, I want them to be suitable for everyone. So I'm going to talk tonight as if we're shooting with when I say normal, just with any camera where we can do a long exposure. So here's how we're going to think about it. All I'm thinking in my mind is what is the shortest amount of time that we need to create the light painting that we want. And for us tonight, in this location, we're going to be spinning an orb. And the minimum amount of time that I need to spin an orb is 60 seconds. So all we are waiting for with this situation tonight is when can we get a 60-second exposure. So how do we think about that? Well, we're looking at the back of the screen now. I've got it set at 30 seconds at f2.8. So let's go out to 60 seconds. Now later on, when we're doing those full moon shots, we're going to be looking at exposure times of 2 and 3 minutes. But for this instance, while it's quite light, let's have a think about 60 seconds. So I know at f2.8, if I take an exposure now, it's just at 60 seconds, it's going to be way too bright. So let's think about aperture then. So as we talked about in those earlier tutorials, the aperture is what determines the brightness of our tool. So we don't want to go too closed. I know if we go to, the tool that we're going to use tonight is a pretty bright orb tool, and I know at f sort of 16, if I put it on maximum brightness, it will still work. So 60 seconds at f16, all we need to do is a test shot, and let's see what happens. Oh, I've got a 2-second delay. That's cool. So it's going to sit there now and do a 60-second exposure. I'll see you in 60 seconds. Okay, we've got a bit of light on. Thank you, Mr. Dave Lazett. What a legend who's here with us tonight. Okay, so let's, so we did our 60-second test exposure. So let's take a look at it and see what we've got. Okay. Well, you know what? I mean, it's pretty close. It's obviously very overexposed. But probably a bit too bright for what we want to be doing. The nice thing about being at f16 though is, of course, our background, our Wilpena Pound, is super sharp, which is really nice. Of course, later on when we're under the full moon, you'll see that having a really shallow depth of field can also be really beautiful. Okay, let's go. So if we go now, this lens, well, it does go to f18. The problem is that I know we're going to have a bit of a problem with getting. We're going to have a bit of a problem with the orb tool because it doesn't quite go that bright, or not as bright as I would like. So we're probably not too far away. So what I'm going to do, look, I'm just going to do another test shot. The other thing I like to do all the time is let's check that our remote is working okay. All right, so I've turned that on and I've turned this on. Brilliant. So that's working. Well, let's do another test shot while we're at it, shall we? So let's have a bit of a talk about remotes. Look, there's such a massive array of remotes on the market. I use this one, which is a Harnell Capture. It's been a great remote, and I'll tell you why it's so good. For a couple of reasons. On the display, while I'm over there doing my shot, I can tell if the shutter is open or closed and how long I've got left to go on the exposure. Now, obviously, when we're doing a really long shot like this, I'm 30 meters away over very rough ground. I want to be sure that I know what's happening back here. And there's a red light on top, so I can tell if the shutter is open or closed while I'm over there. Now, I've got a 3-minute exposure set on my remote, so I'm going to have to stop it at 60 seconds to do our test. I'll stop it manually, which is around about now. So I'll stop that. Okay, that should have stopped. It hasn't. Oh, there we go. Ah, here we go. This is a bit more like it. So at a 60-second exposure, let's have a look at that. So the sky is, so let's press play. So the sky is, look, it's a bit blown out, but the nice thing is the spot where we're going to have our orb is in the shadow. So it's in the background is dark. So it probably will work. But you know what? One of the things that we get very good at when we're light painting is patience. So we're just going to wait, maybe to give it another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll head out and we'll spin our first orb for the night. Super exciting, great location, safety. Den says, don't be a dick. All right, see you soon. Okay, legends, here we go. I reckon we're just about ready to capture our first light painting here up on the hill. It's got nice and dark back there. I'm going to do a test shot. Now we've gone on to bulb. Hang on, sorry, just start recording that screen. So we're on bulb F16. We're using our remote. I've set the timer to 1 minute. So let's hit go. We're operational. So by the magic of modern technology. Alrighty, here we go. Excellent. Oh my gosh, that looks really exciting. So let's take a look at the image that we've got on the screen here. Now, that looks great. The things we want to be thinking about is, imagine the histogram, or we could, if we press play, you know, if we press play and we look at the histogram, there's nothing is blowing out at all. So the sky is fine. We can now we could actually, in reality, when we look at this, because the sky is not blowing out at all, we can actually go back in and we could open up to maybe F11, which is a place that I'm a little more comfortable with our tool. So I'm really happy. I'm ready to go. Let's not piss around. I'm going to head out there and go and spin an orb. Oh my gosh. We'll be recording the back of the screen so you can see everything that's going on. Okay, I'm going to head out. You're not going to see a lot. You'll see the back of the screen. Oh, here's an interesting thing. There's a bloody car driving through the middle of the frame. That's interesting. So we might get some car trails. That'll be all right. Now, focus is on manual. We're still focused up on our spot. Now, the tool that we're going to be using is obviously the ball of light tool. And just for shits and giggles, we've got the rainbow. We've got the rainbow head on. Now, what I'm doing is at F11, I know we need to be reasonably bright. I'm not going all the way. I'm just going to dial it back a bit. I'm going to head out and we'll get going. Oh, this is pretty exciting. Alrighty, now the thing to think about is, and again, a great reason for using a remote is that I've got my headlamp on. Now, if we had to use just manual exposure, I would have had to open the shutter and walk out here in the dark. But of course, it means I can have my headlamp on, walk all the way out here, out to my spot, on the edge here, nice and safe, get comfortable. All right, now I've got a rock here to put on the ground to spin around. So that's my spinning location, just there. All right, so I turned my headlamp off. So now I'm here in the dark, happy with my location. All right. Now I'm going to open the shutter and I've got a minute to spin. Now, of course, the first couple of spins are often a bit wonky because I'm just getting used to the surface here, getting used to how even or uneven it is. And I'm trying to count. Oh, it's funny because I'm thinking about talking to you and I normally count a minute. So I'm just going to have to kind of guess that a bit. Now, the other thing to think about, and later on when we're opening out, we're going for very long exposures, I normally spin for about 90 seconds. But in this instance, We're only going to be going for 60 because it's a bit of a test. All right, it's feeling good. I'm happy with the surface here, which is the most important thing, of course. I'm happy that the surface is, there's enough room for here for me to spin. All right. That should be enough for us to check. Okay, so that was good. That felt really good. Of course, the first shot is always an interesting one. I've gone out, I've made sure that the surface is fine. So let's have a look. So let's hit play. Ooh, flipping chickens. Well, there's a photo. Wow, that's really interesting. So a couple of things have kind of happened there. I wasn't expecting the orb to be quite so big in the image, which was a really nice surprise. But the most important things, as with all of our images, we want to think about the highlights and the shadows. So let's think about the highlights, which really are just the ball of light tool. I'm happy that there's no real hot spots in there, which means that my brightness is okay. Looking at the sky, it's not blowing out. And we can kind of see some shadows. Now, an interesting thing, I can tell you almost for certain that all of that light in the foreground there is from the video light here, which is really interesting. So we will, so what I'll do this time is I'll actually turn it off, which is fine. So really all we're going to start doing now is we're going to build an image around this spot, and that means I'm going to do probably 3 or 4 exposures just to sort of start exploring, going longer in exposure time, just to try and get a bit more of that ambient light in, because the moon is up and is really bright now. So the things I'm going to think about are this. I can go longer in my exposure time, all right? So I probably am going to go out to 2 minutes this time for a couple of reasons. I want to get a bit of that moonlight. I want a little bit more time to spin. Really, if we look at that, it's not as full as I would have liked. So we're going to go out to 2 minutes, and I'm going to bring it right back, just for fun, to f5.6, 2 minutes. And what that'll probably give us is a little bit of the moonlight filling that foreground rather than the video light, which is very, very bright, which is kind of cool. And looking out there, we'll still get a bit of color in the sky as well. So we're at f5.6 for 2 minutes. I'm going to turn the video light off. We'll get a bit of moonlight. Now, of course, because we've gone to f5.6, I need to dial the power of the tool down quite a bit. We've dialed it down a bit. We're at 2 minutes. You know what? Because we're having a bit of fun. Let's go 3. 3 minutes, f5.6. Power to the people. All right, I'm going to stop recording here this time. We haven't got a lot of time left on the memory card, and I'll chat to you when we get. We're back. All right, let's take a look at this now. I reckon. Wow, that's very cool. Okay, so a bunch of things have happened here. All of that light in the foreground here is all from the moon. It's absolutely gorgeous. Whoopeen Pound in the background is lit up like absolutely like a Christmas tree. There's a couple of funny things. I've got a mic pack that has a red light on it, and you can see the red light in the image, so I need to fix that. And then another interesting thing has happened. Straight through the middle of our scene is someone's driven a car. Cheeky buggers. But I tell you what, if we want to think about compression in an image, this has it all. We've got the foreground of the rocks. We've got the ball of light there right in the scene. It's a little hot. Now, it's a little overexposed at the top, which is interesting. So we need to dial our tool back a little bit. I fixed the red light on my back. And hopefully the car will be gone very soon. Let's zoom in and make sure that it's in focus. Yeah, that's funny. You can see the red light. You can see the red light there on my hip, which is pretty funny. Now, the nice thing is that the background, you can see the light from the car there. There's quite a bit of bokeh in that, which is really nice because we've stayed open, because our aperture is quite open. But here's a really important thing, and I really like to stress this all the time. This image is captured at f5.6, and I think a lot of people have this vision that in order to grab these sort of daylight looking light painting images, you have to be using some fancy pants, wide open, ultra fast lens. I really like capturing these at f5.6 and f4 because what that means is it doesn't matter how cheap the lens is that you've got. You can have an ultra basic kit lens that's come with your simple DSLR and you're going to be able to capture an image exactly like this one. Okay, let's just take another look before we check what we're going to change. Cool, we're not going to change a lot. We're going to stay at f5.6. I'm just going to dial the tool down a little bit. Pretty happy with the spin. Everything feels really good. I reckon we're probably only going to need to get one more before we've got an image that I'm happy with. Brilliant. I'll just go and get one more. Let's see if we can't smash it out. I can't see any cars coming, which is pretty important. All right, I'll see you in a minute. Well, there we go. Third attempt. Let's take a look at how it went. Okay, we'll hit play. Beautiful. Let's take a look at it a little closer. Okay, so I dialed the brightness of the tool down, so let's zoom in, see how that went. Pretty good. Look, I know it's going to be a little hot at the top there, but it's not too bad. I mean, I never mind sacrificing a little bit of overexposure at the top to get a nice bright orb. Let's take a look at the foreground. Absolutely gorgeous. I mean, we're going to talk about this in quite some detail in the next tutorial I'm shooting up here. But the moon is coming in at a 90-degree angle to our foreground. So what that's giving us is nice shadows, nice shape, depth in the foreground. We've got plenty of detail over in the hills in the background. You know, we can play with a little bit of that in post. I like how it's a bit out of focus. It's good, it gives us depth. I mean, the reality is it's a bloody long way away. We don't have a car driving through the middle of the shot. But anyway, I think that's a really gorgeous way for us to end this tutorial on using lens for compression. We will be doing plenty of that later on, but up here it works really well in the landscape. So let's just cover a couple of things back off. Things to think about. Safety, obviously, making sure that you know the spot you're going to be going and standing at, using a remote so we can have our headlamp on as we're walking over there. When you're out in a location like this, just remember to take your time. That's what coming out into the landscape is about. Relaxing, breathing into the location. I spend a lot of time sitting around waiting for the shutters to close and just enjoying where I am. Anyway, that's a tutorial on using a long lens to create a ball of light in a location like this. Let's move forward. Peace. I hope you enjoyed this visit to the School of Light. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'll be adding videos all the time. Head over to the light painting tool shop at the website. There's a huge array of tools I've made there for you to take on your light painting journey.